Brewing Success, day 2. I'm so excited to chat with you guys about organization, voice, and identity. Um, let's give Lily a minute to hop in here. All right. Hopefully I did that right. Accept. Come on. There she
Good
is.
morning.
All right, we did it.
We are live.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Do you have your coffee?
I've got the coffee ready, and shout out. Okay, this is an unpaid plug for this company called Brewmate. So I travel a lot. I'm out and about for work. I love coffee, and I don't want to spill it. So I have been on a mission to find a coffee cup that is not spillable and 100% leak proof, and I found it in my Brewmate. So
Dang. Okay, all right.
it's like industrial size, it's definitely more than I should be drinking in one sitting, but yet here we are. Shout out to Brewmate, super cool designs, 100% leak proof, and just enough coffee for us to talk about some really great stuff today. Should we give it a minute and let some others join?
Sure. Yeah. We can maybe give them an overview of what we're going to talk about today before we dive into it.
Let's do it. So this is the second installment of the Brewing Success series with Pink Barn Creative and Black Dog Philanthropic. We are so excited. Yes, very pumped. And today we're focusing on building your organization's voice and identity. So Bree, you're going to be doing a lot of the talking today. I'm looking forward to doing a lot of the listening today because organizational brands and identities really apply to the clients I'm working with, but also to myself. I'm a relatively new business owner. And I'm going to be taking some notes today for sure. So last time we talked about how to start a nonprofit. So the sort of from the ground floor, we talked some about taxes, and it was a little bit boring. I loved it, but I can understand why some folks might not be so down with it. But today we're really getting into, okay, you have an organization, maybe it's new, maybe it's not. Maybe you have a business or a nonprofit or whatever. I think what we're talking about applies to so many different facets of what people are involved with. So really looking forward to it. I'll kick it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you for that great intro, summary of everything that we're going to cover. And I'm excited to also hear from you how all this marketing side of things, like the messaging and the story, apply to fundraising too. Because I know it really hits both. It's not only talking to people like, hey, this is what we're about, but it can help organizations raise money, right?
Absolutely. 100%.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll start big picture then. Like the first thing you got to do is really figure out how you're going to talk to people. What is your why? What story do you want to tell to people about why you started your organization, the status quo you're looking to change, the dog you're looking to save? What is it? What is your motivator? So really thinking hard of like, why do I want to do this? I know last time we talked about looking out there for other organizations to make sure that someone else isn't already doing your work, because there's a lot of duplication and you want to make sure that you stand apart and are unique. And so figuring out your why really goes to that exercise too, of like what sets you apart, what makes you different, and the change that you want to achieve and how you want to achieve different. And with that too, everyone has a set of values as individuals, as business owners, organizations. Authenticity is one of mine. I'll use I'll giggle after everything. Like, I'm not trying to come in here all professional and this is what's what. I really want to make this conversational with all of my clients, with my Instagram audience, with anyone that I talk to. I don't show up as someone I'm not. And so the same goes for an organization with their values. Like, what, when you're thinking about the work that you do, is something that really guides the decision you make. That dog that you're going to save, that I know you're working on securing a building for one of your clients. So, like, why are they buying that property, and what is that going to contribute to their mission? And why would purchasing that property really go towards their value set? What good would they achieve with that? So, it's a way to guide the decisions you make just as an individual. Like, if I'm not showing up an authentic self, giggling with a coffee stained chihuahua mug, then that's not me. That's not something I'm going to do. Right? So really thinking about those values. Yeah, go ahead.
We were prepping for this before a few minutes ago, and I had my dogs out here. I'm outside, so apologies for any background noise. And they were squeaking with a squeaky toy, and they were running around.
Yes.
And Bree was laughing about it, and I was like, oh, I need to get them inside. But she said, but that's authentic, right? So
yeah,
you're absolutely right. And something that I think we as professionals who are providing our expertise, or at least me, I get almost nervous because I want to provide a really great product. And I have to remind myself, and I think is what you're saying, is authenticity is part of that product. Like,
yep,
people want to work with people who have like toys, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a really great point.
Yeah, it's so true. And the more that you define and think about your values and what's guiding your decision-making process, the more you're going to find those people that are like, hey, I really value authenticity too. Like, I want to show up in a baggy t-shirt every day. If that's like who you are, show up in a baggy t-shirt every day. You will find your baggy t-shirt people. So like, really defining your why, defining your value helps you find your tribe, helps you find those people that are going to support your mission, that are going to be in your corner, even donate to what you're doing. So the more authentic you are, the more clear you are in your value set, the better as far as messaging goes. And for sure.
It's another really, it's very interesting that you're bringing up value set and, understanding sort of what the things are that are really important to you. I call them my North Stars. And yes, my whole business was actually founded on a value set that I subscribe to. And that is that bespoke consulting, fundraising, philanthropic consulting is financially out of reach for a lot of nonprofits, small ones, and those are the ones that really need it. So my value set has been provide that at a sustainable cost, integrate into the organization, and provide great value to that organization and leave the organization better when you leave it than when you found it, rather than just coming in, providing some best practices and leaving. The value set is something that I carry with me, and that I've picked that up over 13 years in the field. You really can start to understand who you are and what's important to you and what's maybe not as important to you. And that's something really important that informs what you're doing with your business or with your organization. So great point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. See, it's defining your decision-making process in your business. And it sounds like it's grown with you as you've gained experience, as you've worked with people. Okay. And so that's a really important part of messaging that I definitely want to mention is this can change. This is a living document. This is to help you decide, because we're talking about starting nonprofits. Where do you want to start? What is the why? What are those values that are initially going to guide me as I'm making those initial decisions? But be really open as you start doing the thing, as you start making the change. What's coming up? What are the values that are really resonating with people? Is the landscape and your issue changing? Revisit your branding and messaging often. As you grow at 13 years, right, you're going to see different values pop up, different decisions that you've had to make, and you'll be better informed, and it'll get clearer and clearer and clearer as you go. Great point, Lily. Thanks for bringing that up. And I think, too, we're talking a little bit about how this kind of impacts and resonates with people in the public, right? So the decisions that you're making, finding those people, finding your tribe, finding those people that are going to support you, your mission, or even donate. It's time to talk about your audience, right? Who are you speaking to? And I think this is one of the hardest parts for anyone that's running a business, anyone that's being a leader, to kind of conceptualize and understand. Because initially we want everyone, right? We want everyone to come in the circle and be like, this dog's life is worth everything. Everyone knows that, right? I'm with you. Yes. We're saving the black dogs. Lily and I are on the same page there. But not everyone is, right? And so to get super clear and have an idea of exactly who you're speaking to, specificity is what succeeds in marketing versus generalities, right? And so people are like, oh, I can't get too specific because I don't want to alienate Joe Blow. Okay, that's great. Like, I get that you want to bring Joe into the conversation,
Right.
but by getting really specific, you're picking up Lily, Mary, Lauren. You're picking up so many other people that are really, really, really resonating with what you're selling. And by selling, I mean your messaging. Selling that mission, selling that change. It's not necessarily a product.
Here's an interesting full circle moment. So remember how last time we were talking about the fact, and you actually brought this back up a few minutes ago, make sure that nobody is already doing what you're doing.
Yep.
Make sure that you're not duplicating efforts or it's going to harm both of you. The same thing here, right? Hone in on who your target audience is, because guess what? I assure you there's probably someone else that's capturing the market that might not be of interest to you. You can't do all of the things all at once, and specificity is absolutely the right way to go. And I know that we're going to talk about storytelling in a minute, which I think is so critically important to business and nonprofit, and really helping to keep that North Star and to highlight some of those stories and highlight specificity that people are looking for.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it gets even more specific between your donors and your supporters. Someone that's going to be a monthly sustaining donor, you may speak differently to them than you would to someone that you want to sign your petition, for example. So specific, specific, specific. Brainstorm and then keep narrowing. As an exercise, I really like to try and create an individual that I'm speaking to when I'm copywriting. So if I'm writing, say, a petition campaign, I want signatures on a petition, right? I'm going to picture Lauren, and Lauren is passionate about dogs, and Lauren has 3 dogs of her own, all rescues, and I know what she does for a living. I know what her income is. I know where she lives. So I'm speaking to Lauren, and that really helps clarify your messaging. It makes it easier because it's like you're having a conversation like we are now, but you're still going to resonate with those people that are, don't forget to it even helps the process. And it helps every bit of your messaging too. So when you start to get into what's our mission statement, thinking about how would Lauren look at me? I'm just going to go with Lauren the whole time.
Go with it.
So how would Lauren interpret my organization? How would she see what we're doing, the change that we're looking to achieve, and what we've done so far? So I like to use templates too. For a mission statement, it's something like, our organization is on a mission to blank because of blank, and this is the way we're doing it, ABC. So we're on a mission to save all the black dogs because black dogs are systematically looked over in shelters, and we're doing that by rescuing and promoting and fostering, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, we are only focused on black dogs. Give those specific examples, and you will resonate with your audience. Everyone will be super clear on what you're doing. And I know, as you're saying with storytelling, that really goes to fundraising too, right? That helps when you're requesting money to get really specific about what you're doing.
Oh, big time. And, you know, you're hitting on lots of, and by the way, authenticity. There's a UPS truck somewhere out there. So you hear the beeps. I'm just part of life.
I don't hear it, but it works.
So as we're talking about storytelling, and as you're talking about creating templates and all of this stuff, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. And save all of those things. So it is so key to have what I call a repository, right? A Dropbox, a Google Drive, whatever. You never know when you're going to be pulling some of that messaging for other things. And again, you can customize it. In fundraising, we call that segmentation, you know, and refining your message based on your audience. But guess what? You always want to have common themes that are going to run through them. So the mission, or the impact numbers, right? You want to make sure that you're advertising and sharing the same impact numbers, because that's how you're measuring success in one way for your organization, right? But then you can get really flexible based on your audience. And the storytelling is so key. Tell the story of the black dog. I'll tell you my story of my black dog. She was sitting in the back corner of the animal shelter, and my wife wanted to go look at this brand new animal shelter that had opened up in Montgomery County. And she said, let's just go look. And I said, fine, but we're not getting a dog. No matter what, we're not coming home with a dog. And we walked around, and every dog in that whole shelter was barking. There were 200 dogs back there. And there was one in the back corner that was just laying down, and she looked up at me and she was wagging her tail. And I said, that's my dog. And my wife says, well, I thought we weren't getting a dog. I was like, no, this is my dog and we're done. We're leaving now with this dog. And after, I had no idea. I fell in love with this black dog. Well, guess what? Then I started to learn about how black dogs are euthanized at a hugely disproportionate rate because they're dark, they don't show up in photos, people perceive that they're bad luck. I'll tell you what, my black dog is the best good luck charm I've ever had. And there's a National Black Dog Day on October 1st. All of these things that I had no idea about. But guess what? Every person with a black dog has a story about their black dog. So that's how you make those connections. So storytelling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, that story gave me goosebumps. And for marketing too, this repository idea, it's great because as every black dog you save has a backstory, has a fostering story, has an adoption story, save all of that, code all of it. That's your content right there. Those are success stories. Those are your fundraising asks. Hey, we just rescued this dog. We need this support for their medical issue or for food for the shelter because we just did a huge intake. Whatever it is, every story, everything you're doing can be systematized and categorized to be your content, to go to grants. So I love that. Great tip. Keep a record of everything.
And here's another really cool thing that you can do with storytelling. You can talk about a transformation of a program or a person or a dog. I'm in Maryland. We have lots of rescues in this area that do a fantastic job of sharing a transformation story. You know, when we took this dog from intake at a rural shelter, and we pulled her, and she had this and that and the other thing wrong, and we need to raise money for her surgery, and look at her now in her adoptive home, 2 years later. Same thing applies. We're talking a lot about dog rescues, but to give you just another example, there are educational organizations that provide scholarships, right, or grants. You can follow that individual and you can see the trajectory of their success because of that organization's support, and say, guess what? If you want to create more black dog stories, or if you want to create more scholarship opportunities, or if you want to transform somebody's life, here's how you do it. So it's great to tell that story. And it's also great so that you can have a starting point where you can go back later and say, oh my gosh, look at what we were able to help this person accomplish, or this program, or this animal, or whatever is important to you.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important. I love that you're bringing in other examples, but I think it's really important too to hit on that program aspect that you just brought up. Like, this can be as broad as this piece of legislation used to exist, and because of you, because of our support, we were able to overturn it. Like, it doesn't have to be a human, dog, etc. interest story. It can be a whole historical perspective story of what used to be the status quo and how you were able to shape that and change that. That's just as impactful.
I love that. Yeah. Something that I think about a lot is the micro versus the macro. So, and you need both. And as we're talking about earlier, we talked about different audiences and different narratives for different folks. Have all of it, because you just really never know when it's going to become relevant in a conversation or in an appeal or whatever it may be. So the micro is the individual story. The micro is the Ruby at the shelter, right? The macro is legislation, county or statewide, whatever's, right? It is your program at large. It's the systematic approach to what your organization is doing. It's really, really nice to have that and to blend them or to not blend them. Again, keep everything. I can't tell you, there is very little that I start from scratch. because I have decades of stuff from various organizations, whether it's a thank you letter, which is a very templated kind of thing, and you can customize to the organization's mission and vision and work, or a grant application, or a case for support. The list goes on and on. Social media. So I can't emphasize enough, figure out a way that works for you to track information. Some people have a Dropbox, some people like folders on their desktop. I know that there are other super tech savvy ways. I'm not tech savvy at all. So use that, but pick whatever works for you and really save everything, because you never know when it's going to save you a ton of time, or when you might find that one obscure thing that you wrote about way back when that is so relevant all of a sudden.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that you're talking about variety, because that goes into your content strategy too. And I think it's so important to, when you're in your zone of genius, doing the work, saving the dog, creating this systematic change for the public, it's really hard to step back and think of how someone that hasn't done that work, doesn't know about your issue, is going to read your story, read your content, or even your application. How will they understand what you're doing, why it's so important? So having a variety of stories, and especially from a social media and email perspective, no one person is going to interact with every single piece of content. So being able to have a variety that's going to hit different people at different times, speak to someone else versus our classic Lauren example, we're going to speak to Lily now, right? And having that variety, those different stories, those different successes or needs or updates, transformations, whatever it is, the more variety you have to pull from, the wider your audience is going to be, the more reach you're going to have, and the more awareness for your issue. And that's ultimately the goal, right, for nonprofits. So
where I'm kind of sitting back and I'm taking notes for myself right now with your what did you call it? Your zone of genius.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that all day, every day, because social media, marketing as a business, not my zone of genius. And
right.
So right now in real time, something that I'm struggling with is I have an Instagram, obviously. I think I just got my 70th follower, by the way. Thank you, follower number 70. We're 30 away from influencer status. I think we determined arbitrarily that 100 was the way. You've been an influencer for a long time. I aspire to be like you. But I have an Instagram, I have a Facebook, and I have a LinkedIn, which I don't even think about because I'm busy working with great organizations. And I'm trying to highlight the amazing work that they're doing on Instagram and on Facebook. And then I heard, well, you want to have different content on your Facebook and on your Instagram. And I was like, oh, that's a really good point, because I don't want to just be duplicating content, right? Because people engage with those platforms differently. And so I'm trying to mix that up a little bit. I still haven't even incorporated LinkedIn, which I suspect has a more high level, maybe some more detail. I don't know, maybe you can help me out with that, but it is really challenging because I feel that I have expertise in fundraising development, but when I'm looking at my LinkedIn, I have no idea. What do I even talk about here? You know what I mean? Do I talk about my organization? Do I talk about the organizations that I'm serving? And so it's just it's just a great reminder that there is always somebody who is in that zone of genius that can help you, because I posted my first Instagram story this morning and I was pumped about it, and it took me 10 minutes to figure out how to post an Instagram story. Not my zone of genius, it's your zone of genius.
I was so proud of you, by the way. But it's so true. You're already sounding like an expert. You're like, oh, I think LinkedIn is different. It totally is. All the platforms have a different audience. People interact on them in a different way. While you can use the same content, you should be repurposing and repackaging it in a way that the person on that platform is going to experience it. So for example, let's think of like Twitter versus TikTok. Couldn't be more different You can post the same ideas, but Twitter is more of a text-based platform. TikTok's more of a short video-based platform. So you're going to have to repurpose what you're saying, what you're trying to convey. So from a nonprofit standpoint, Twitter's great for getting media attention. Like if you really have a big success, you want to put that on Twitter. You want to try and drum up leads through there. But TikTok would be hitting your supporter base and showing them the dog, showing the rescue, kind of that behind the scenes, what that looks like, showing versus telling, right? And so it's thinking a lot of the experience that a user has on these platforms, who's hanging out on them, such as age demographics. LinkedIn has more professionals, more high-level decision makers. Twitter has more reporters. TikTok has more Gen Z. So how are you talking to these different generations, these different audiences, but still conveying your same message, the same topic? So it's a lot to think about. I totally get it. And so that's why with entrepreneurs, with nonprofit leaders, delegation is key. And I get it. In the beginning, you don't always have the funds for delegation, right? But there are resources. And Lily and I both have freebies, and we're willing to talk to you guys about any questions you have with how to navigate those beginning questions of messaging. The best thing you can do for yourself is digest and explore everything that's out there for free. There's so many people that are in their zone of genius, sharing free content on how to get started and navigate. That's why we're doing these Instagram lives. Right. We want to help. And so the more you can kind of see like, okay, I have a basic understanding, but I know this isn't my thing. Then when you're ready to delegate, you're set up and you know what to expect from someone that can help you out there.
Right.
And I'm sure it's the same for grant writing, right, Lily?
Oh, it's definitely the same for grant writing. And it is really important to have a baseline understanding of just the methodology of it before you're able to deploy that and delegate that to somebody. It's actually the same with a lot of things in fundraising. Whether you're talking about direct mail, there's lots of different ways to solicit. There's lots of different types of donor. You hit on a monthly sustainer. I think that's a great example, a highly underrated resource, by the way, for organizations, because it's consistent revenue. So we can talk about that. That's in a future live series. Okay. So you're going to have to come back next time. But we'll talk a lot about that. But I do think it's really important. And this kind of goes back to one of my value sets too. I think it's really important for me personally to understand how something works before I ask somebody else to do it. That's just, that's a me thing. I think probably we can all agree that at some level that's important. Because then that helps you maintain that adherence to the mission and adherence to the values, and making sure that your teammate or your consultant, who is an extension of your team, is delivering those things in a way that's consistent with your value set, right? So I think having that baseline is really important. What I'm also hearing is that I should probably get a TikTok, and I am not.
So, I mean, I will never tell anyone not to experiment. Everyone should be experimenting, at least getting on the different platforms and seeing what's out there, seeing what people are doing. I originally got a TikTok because I loved cute dog videos, so let's just be honest and upfront about that, okay?
You know,
but
TikToks all the time. I just haven't pulled the trigger and actually signed up for it. But it would be a cool, you're absolutely right. As I'm thinking about this, and to be honest with you, I've never really thought about this before now, there are different mechanisms for all of the different ways that we deliver information. And TikTok is more, I think, not more authentic, but there's more opportunity to be a little bit looser. I wouldn't post the same on TikTok that I would on LinkedIn, I'll tell you that much. And kind of same thing with Facebook. It's a little bit more, I don't know, not rigid, but there's some limitations.
It skews older too, so more mature audience. You're not going to use a bunch of acronyms that they might have to Google, right? So hashtags don't perform the same on Facebook, but this is where you should talk to an expert or do some research into what's performing and what's not. There's also a ton of free conferences where you can get a bunch of great information. Like I know there's the Nonprofit Marketing Summit that's held online. Those folks do a great job, put on a great event. So if you have any questions about the marketing world, we're here to help you navigate that, but also the internet is your best friend, and there's a ton out there to help you get started.
Well, your help. Monica says, heck yeah to TikTok. I think that's for me. I think it's the sign from the universe. Thank you, Monica.
Time to get on it.
TikTok. Opportunity where Ruby, the black dog herself, makes some cameo appearances.
Yes.
I think we've just hit on something here. So overall, when we're talking about social media, is it a friend? Is it a foe?
Oh goodness, the age-old question. I believe it's a friend because it allows your audience to see you, right? It brings them in. And even if you aren't, because it's a very slow process on social media, and I just want to preface that, you're not going to open your Instagram account and immediately get 100,000 followers. And so you have to build that authenticity. You have to show up and be social. It's a social media platform. So communicating, commenting, messaging, all of that matters. But here's why I think it's a friend. Because it allows people into your world behind the scenes. It feels intimate. It feels authentic. It feels like they're your friend. Where an email list is great and is important and you need it, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. A social media presence is more immediate and is more casual. We've talked about even on LinkedIn. You can have your anecdotal thought about an article, right? And it's not as formal as an email may feel, or as a newsletter or donor appeal may feel. And so person to person, showing up authentic and just trying to connect with people is why social media is your friend.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense. And I think you touched on email list, which I'm from a fundraising perspective, really looking forward to hearing about, something that I've, again, anecdotally, and would love your take on this. There are so on social media, there are so many opportunities to donate that I think we've hit somewhat of a saturation point. So when you're looking at, and it's great, look, I can't scroll past any of my friends' fundraisers without kicking them 25. It's just, I love it. I just love that people care about things that are different than I care about as deeply. And I love to support that. If it's a dog rescue thing, I'm donating to it. No questions asked, right?
Yep.
That's great because I'm kind of a one-off, and there are many people that are very generous in that way.
Yeah.
It's not a consistent stream of revenue, whereas an email list to your most ardent supporters is probably going to yield a better result in terms of consistent revenue, which is key to running a business, which, a nonprofit is a business, as we talked about last time. So, tell me more about not the dichotomy, but how do you balance those two things? How do you balance the social media and the email list, and how are those messages different?
Sure. So first things first, you need an email list. Point blank, solid, no questions asked. Social media can help you build that. Like you can run a organic, evergreen, always present ad to help you build and generate leads into your email list and signups for that. But here's why you have to have it. In our ever controversial, shall I say, social media world, all too often I see accounts shut down, shadow banned, people get blocked out of their accounts, spammers take over. There's a myriad of things that could go wrong. People that, oh, my heart goes out to them, but people have logged in and everything's gone. You've lost all your followers, all your content, everything just disappears overnight. Nightmare scenario, right?
Yeah.
But your email list, you own. You know exactly who those people are, how to communicate with them. If that happens to you, immediately go to your email list and be like, guys, here's what just happened. Here's where we're at. Please help us, support us. This is, you can talk directly to them still. And so an email list is so important because as you're building that supporter base, you can't just rely on social media because it could be taken away in a minute. And then in email, as far as tone goes, like we're doing now, right? You can't do a live in email, but you can keep that conversational tone. And with all my clients, I try to emphasize the need to really still speak to people. Email has gotten more casual. Emojis are used, GIFs are used, right? You want engaging content, engaging subject lines to get people to open and look at your content, click through to your website, your blog, whatever it is that email is about. Maybe it's a donation that day. But the key pieces are, one, you own your email list. That is your security blanket, your supporters, your donors. It's the first thing that's going to help you start building a relationship management system, right? Is getting those email lists in a way to communicate with those people that's secure. So please, please, please build an email list. And then two, think about your inbox. What was the last email you opened and why? Like, subject lines are difficult, to say the least, because you have, it's almost like Twitter, like a mini Twitter. You have even less characters to capture someone's attention and get that open. Yeah. Because if they don't open the email, it doesn't matter how engaging or how great the need, right? So then focus on your subject lines to make sure that you're getting someone to even open your email. From there, you can focus on what the ask is, what the story is, and similar to social media, you want a diversity of content. You want to be telling stories. You want to be sharing updates. I love a good newsletter for a nonprofit on a bi-monthly or monthly basis, depending on how much you're doing, just so people see that you are making progress, that issue area that they care about too is having headway, right? It keeps your audience engaged. Your donors are excited, right? And they really see that change is happening. So one, make that list. Two, get them to open the email. And three, think about how you can be engaging.
That's great. How do you make an email list from scratch?
Oh, so hard, but great question. So again, if you want to start out on social media and you want to share that behind the scenes, and you have volunteers that, let's stick with dog rescues for a minute, and they get out there and they're rescuing the dog, have them video, have them tell you the story, take pictures, right? And start with social media, start showing that behind the scenes, start engaging with them, right? And then you can use that, like sign up for our emails on your website. There should be an opportunity to sign up for your email list. At every point where you're sharing something, website, blog, social media, what have you, there should be an opportunity to sign up for your email list. Even people that are on the email list should be able to send that to a friend so they can sign up. And so just make sure that you're making it ever present so that it's easy, it's a no-brainer, people can continue to stay in touch with you.
So it's coming from multiple sources, but you
Absolutely.
really share a common theme throughout. That's really helpful to know. And again, I think it's sort of, by the way, I was asking for myself. It also benefits others on the live here, but it's sort of like the social media aspect, which is that it's a snowball effect. It takes a little bit of time, and consistency is important. Making sure that the opportunity is there to engage in ways that are meaningful to that supporter.
Exactly. And too, in nonprofits, I see a lot, at least with my clients, that they'll partner with other organizations on events or initiatives. Make sure that when you're cross-posting or supporting each other in whatever platform it is, that you're getting your message out there too, and that people are visible and know of your involvement as well, and that how they can stay in touch with you. So for example, if there's a petition that they sign up for, that both of you get the email lists from that signature, right? Make sure that you're information sharing and collecting emails at every action.
We got a question in the chat, and I think this one's for you, Bree. May I know which niche of copywriting you recommend?
Oh, goodness. Copywriting niches. That is a huge question. If you're just starting out, I definitely recommend that you bounce around, try a bunch of different things, work in a bunch of different niches, and see what really lights a fire in you. You could also spend some time reflecting on what you're interested in, even looking around your house and see what products you have on the shelf, what categories do all of those fall in? Are you an outdoorsy person? Are you a pet person? So do some reflecting on what really interests you, what your hobbies are, and then spend some time playing around with it. I knew I was always interested in giving back and writing for nonprofit organizations, animals and the environment. I'm previously an animal and an environmental attorney. It's always been a big through line in my life. So it was a pretty strong pull for me, but it's an interest area, right? And I can continue to narrow it from there. So just being flexible and continuing to let that grow and change as you grow and change as a copywriter. Great question.
That's a really good question. And I've never really considered, again, not my zone of genius. I'm gonna, but you know, I didn't really even think about what a copywriting niche was until just now. So it's necessarily been in my world, though I've written a lot for fundraising efforts. That's a really, really interesting, really good question and great answer.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, and too, even in the nonprofit world, right? There's going to be environmental organizations and there's going to be education organizations, like you talked about of your education client. So even if you're like, I know I want to write for nonprofits because I want to give back in that way, amazing. But then play with it and see what different organizations need and where your interest areas are from there.
Yeah, I love that. And always keep that underpinning, I think, of authenticity.
Yes.
Because that is what differentiates us, right? That's what makes us all unique and bringing amazing things to this world. And it's really important to keep them.
Yeah. So true. So true.
Anything?
Oh my gosh. We covered so much good stuff in this live.
We could talk for another hour, but I know that our target is to keep these to 30 to 40 minutes. So, Bree, I have learned a ton. I have a to-do list, join TikTok and start to create a newsletter and an email list. So I will be busy for the next couple of hours. Thank you so much for your your zone of genius. I know that you do offer social media and email checkups for folks who might need that. So definitely get in touch. And our next episode is So You're a Brand New or New-ish Nonprofit. And what we're going to cover there is Donors 101. So what is the life cycle of a gift? What are the 4 stages of giving? What are the types of giving? You mentioned monthly sustainer, monthly giving. That's one of many important types. It's amazing. Bree, you're going to talk about donor messaging. We're going to take a lot of what we talked about today and really put a fine point on that. We're going to talk a little bit about stewardship, sort of the whole life cycle of, okay, you're brand new. You want to start raising money for this amazing cause. How do you do it? And what are the pieces to that puzzle? So that's what we're going to be talking about on Tuesday, May 9th, 10 a.m. Eastern. Bring your coffee, whether it's in a BrewMate or a Chihuahua mug. We support the way.
This is amazing, Lily. Thanks so much for sharing your insights too.
Cool.
Absolutely loved what you brought up. And I cannot wait for the next episode. If you guys have questions in the meantime, please feel free to message either of us or leave a comment when I post this video. We want this to be interactive. We want to make sure that we're answering everything that's coming up for you, wherever you are in your nonprofit journey. So thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you next time.
See you in a month.
Bye.